Hello and welcome to the Surgical Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haider Al-hakim, the Third Eye Doctor. Pull up a chair and get ready for some candid and uncompromising discussion with experts, innovators, agitators, and influential people from every corner of health and well-being. From inside the hospital to at home in the kitchen, we're leaving no stone unturned in our quest to uncover the secrets of healthier, happier, more successful, and less stressful lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and without further ado, let's meet this episode's guest. Hi Tina, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you, Haider, for inviting me to your podcast, and I'm looking forward to taking part. I've listened to some of them and it's been quite insightful.
Which one's your most favorite one?
Which one's my favorite? And I just got a few bits and tips from each one of them. I think it's just interesting to listen to other people's journey and see how they cope with challenges that everyone faces, really. And yeah, I like to call myself a resilient person, so it's interesting to hear other people's story and take bits from it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I think we've always been resilient as a group of people. I think people who are attracted to medicine and surgery tend to be quite resilient. So when they start talking about you need to be more resilient, it kind of gets a bit, it's like, well, I'm resilient enough, thank you very much. What are you trying to say?
I know it's a bit of a tick boxing is an exercise, isn't it? When you're training, there's always a box about, is this trainee resilient? And I suppose it stops being such a obvious tick boxing exercise after you finish training and you're a consultant. Even I would argue that you probably need resilience more than ever when you become a consultant, because things are always growing and changing, and different challenges become apparent and rear their head, don't they, once you're a consultant. Bigger challenges than when you're a trainee. And that was certainly my experience. And I've not been in the game for that long. So this is my fifth year. So in my 5 years, I've found being a resilient is more poignant now than it has ever been, because I always had you always have a cushioning effect from your supervisors and your superiors when you're a trainee, which you don't necessarily find as a consultant. It can be quite lonely sometimes, and finding out your selected person to support you through it and finding your mentors is it's very very rewarding, actually. So if you find your special people who coach you through it and mentor you through it, then it becomes easier.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, that after you become, the consultant or the medical director or, the one that sort of runs the service, your kind of support network is different. It sort of changes as a compared to a trainee. And to be honest with you, I found that sort of going to people who are non-ophthalmologists is just as helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
I wouldn't say it's more helpful, because you still need to know the ophthalmic side of things.
Yeah.
But I think sort of widening your sort of network and your sort of net of support, I think also helps.
Yeah, it does. And I think you learn a lot about being a leader as well, because leadership can come from any walks of life. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone your senior. So even someone junior can help you in the leadership journey. And people lead in different ways, and looking out for the person when they're at their most vulnerable is the best quality of a leader. They kind of take the flock with them. They just don't rise by themselves. And that's the kind of person or kind of people I want to be. I aspire to be that. You just don't think about yourself as a single unit. You think about the greater good and and taking your flock with you. And that's what we're here to do, isn't it? Just give benefit to most people that we can reach. I think that's our purpose in life, to benefit others, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like to float. So, you know, my kind of leadership style is floating. Yeah. I mean, I'm hope I'm not using others to allow me to float, but as you said, you know, every individual in the organization contributes to your mentorship and your leadership style and, you know, kind of leading. It's difficult to describe how that works, but, you know, everyone else has that sort of, you know, there's something special about them that you can learn from. And I think sort of being open to that rather than, you know, saying to yourself, no, I'm the boss, you know, what the hell can this person teach me because I've seen it all and so on.
Yeah.
But when you're open to kind of, you know, the possibility that others actually can show you a new light within you and, you know, within yourself, it just, I mean, for me, it just reduces the pressure of sort of getting everything right 100 times out of 100, which is what's expected from a leader, really. I mean, people expect you to get everything right.
People almost expect you to be God when you're leading a team, because they look up to you and the buck stops with you, but you're a human just like everyone else, so you're going to make mistakes and learn through the mistake. That's the main thing. If you're not learning from your mistakes, then keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, then you're not leading or learning or growing, and that's going to be detrimental to not just yourself but the whole team. But yeah, leadership skills and resilience, they kind of go hand in hand, and it's not the same as managing people. Leadership is not the same. Leadership is just bringing the best out of your team members, doesn't matter where they are in their hierarchy. Managing is completely different. They're kind of, they stick to a protocol, don't they? And they make the most money for the bosses. So that's a different aspects to leadership. They're not interested in the growth of the people that they manage. But yeah, leadership is where we should be honing all our energy to, because that's where you get the most benefit.
Yeah. I mean, I find it difficult sometimes when, you know, the colleagues I'm with don't want to grow or, you know, don't want to move forward. And that used to really frustrate me. But over the years, I've kind of, you know, just let time take its place. And, you know, I'd say push them rather than pull them. Maybe I should pull them a lot more, you know, just make it relevant to them, you know, in a pulling way.
Yeah.
I was a lot pushy before, but I think over time I'm sort of less pushy and more kind of suggestive and more, you know, I wouldn't say enticing, you know, that's probably a bit manipulative, but, you know, try and pull them in a direction. And the way I do that is through vision, really. You know, it's like show them a vision and, you know, see what they're interested in and come up with a really interesting, compelling story.
Yeah, that's it.
You know,
that's it. I was just going to say, having the vision, that's where it starts, the vision board, isn't it? Because you really need to know your team members to see where their vision should align with yours. And if it doesn't, then maybe they're not in the right team. And vision is where that's where the motivation will come into it and get people further than they've ever gone. And that's what you want. You want to grow them. You want to reach their potential. Because I really believe in the potential of humans. We've achieved so much, and we can still achieve so much more. It's just we forget that we're humans and we act like animals sometimes. But yeah, vision is really
well, you know, we have these instincts. You know, we have these really powerful instincts, and, you know, they manifest in different animal ways and so on, and that's only natural. So where did this drive for leadership and vision come from? What was the first memory or story in your?
I think the inspiration really came from my parents. My father used to work for the UN, and he was a truly self-made man. His lineage, he came from a quite religious and spiritual background. His family was more religiously orientated rather than the, scientific background. So he came from that kind of background. He tore away from not just he still maintained his religious and spiritual growth, but he also embraced the worldly knowledge and worldly gain and how to help people through education. And that was his main thing. I think that's where he's been a role model for our family, and that's where we grew up with the fact that he used to help people make it, and used to coach people through the world, and how he's reached out to so many people, how he made it out himself, and just enriched so many people that he worked with or came into contact with. And that kind of ethos he also fostered within the family. So everything was vision orientated, everything was oriented around benefiting mankind. Charity was a big part. And I think that's where our leadership comes into it. And we knew there was going to be so many glass ceilings, particularly because we are females. I came from a family of 4 girls, and in those cultures, girls are not encouraged as much as boys, which was quite different from
which cultures are these?
So it was Bengali culture. So in that part of the world, the definition of what women should do is different, and it suited them in their culture. But my father was quite broad-minded, and he was always sure that we would be leaders in our own field. So he would encourage whatever field we wanted to go into to be pioneers and leaders in that field, and kind of help others and mentors others through as we're going. So we used to do reach out community work ever since we were little. We did fostering and mentoring, teaching, and education was a big part. And my dad certainly saw education was a way out of a lot of problems, particularly poverty, and that was instilled in us from early age. And we kind of saw and lived through his role model of how he used to live and how he used to behave with other people, how he used to treat others. It didn't matter to him whether they were postman or someone who's worked in a domestic setting or someone who is a CEO of the company. You'd treat them the same way, and that's the kind of people that we were aspired to be ever since we're little. So yeah, that's where the vision and the leadership comes, and also breaking glass ceilings, because as a girl, it still matters. Being a girl in this day and age is still a man's world. So I find it challenging to break some of those glass ceilings and do things and come up with ideas that, sometimes it's annoying that some of my ideas get stolen and people run away with it and do things faster than I do, but it's quite flattering other times, thinking, it was a good idea, that's why they took it. I didn't take it as my own. I couldn't get it that much further, but at least it's benefiting people, and it was my idea. So it doesn't matter. I'm not really interested in getting a name for myself. Rather, I wanted, the intention was to help people, and that's what it did. So, and that's what the teaching was, that sometimes you have to be a bit selfless and for the benefit of others.
And what prompted your father to sort of go outside the
norm,
the usual, the norm, So
his ancestry, they were the visiting Persians who spread religion. So they came and settled in Bangladesh, and they spread the religion, which is really a big part in our religion. In our family, we still very connected with God, and we think of God in everything we do. And that's been a family ethos and tradition. But it was also important for Dad to help people with, because they saw so much poverty in the areas they were in, and to help those around them. And that was part of charity and part of being a good Muslim anyway. So that was one way he could really reach out to most people or more people. And that's why he pursued it that way. He was quite clever in economics, and so he pursued economics, and then he worked in the government and curriculum sector, and then he worked in UN and did a lot of consultancy work for UN. So it just naturally happened, I think, for him. It just spontaneously opportunities were thrown in his direction, and he took them.
Yeah. I mean, economics is an interesting topic. It's kind of, you understand it, but you don't understand it. It's sort of a science, but not really a science sort of thing.
I know.
It's sort of,
I never got it.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
It's a bit like business, I guess. It's a bit like business, what makes a business successful. You kind of know what it might be, but you don't really know it. It just, some businesses just take off and others fall flat. And I mean, I never actually enjoyed economics as a student,
I don't think I studied it. I don't think I studied economics. I was more science and maths person. So yeah, I don't know much about it. I do regret not studying a bit of business, because I think that's really key for a doctor to learn about marketing and business, because it's so needed for every doctor. NHS has been so protective, and they did all the business side, they did all the marketing. We just saw patients, and that's all we did. And then when you're stepping up into the private sector and you're not part of NHS, then those things, you suddenly think, I've got so much gap in that knowledge. I don't have any knowledge of how to market, do the marketing, do the business plans and all of those things. And it's not like we're not capable of learning those. We're quite versatile as medics. We dip in and out of many subjects, and we kind of get to grasp with it quite quickly. So it's not way above our head, for example, but it's certainly something that we don't teach our medical students, and I think we should.
No, for sure. Definitely. I think, have some kind of formal MBA-like kind of structure for medical students, so that, they have the vocabulary and the lingo, to deal with managers and business managers and sort of other stakeholders within the financial sector involved in healthcare. I think that's essential, just to kind of actually be there and be part of the whole conversation, and not be out of their depth, for sure. So your father was an economist, with a strong spiritual and religious background, and yet you kind of felt more inclined towards the physical sciences and the natural sciences.
So I always enjoyed science in school, and that was what I was good at. And if I'm thinking back, I was thinking, how can I help people that's kind of halal way? And this is the most halal way I could think of at that time. Halal just means in the way of God. So, we can, it's not like being a lawyer or a banker. You don't have to lie and work shallow ideas. And this is the most noble thing I could think of. So it kind of suited me in that sense. And I think I'm still very privileged to be where I am, and to be looking after people's sight and giving gift of sight is an amazing thing. And if you lose the sight, that's the best sense in terms of all the 5-6 senses they can think of. And yeah, I'm privileged to be where I am, and I don't regret it one bit, choosing medicine.
And your other sisters, were they also interested in natural sciences, or?
Yeah, one sister became cardiologist. So she, I think she was inspired by the fact that my dad, he had a sudden heart attack in his 50s and died. So she wanted to pursue cardiology after he died. My father really wanted one of us to become gynecologist because, or obstetrician, because there's a lot of death of females who are pregnant or young children. But none of us liked obs and gynae, I'm afraid. Sorry, Dad. And the other two sisters, they were not scientifically inclined, so they did software engineering and architecture. So that's also a great way of reaching people and helping people. So yeah, I think Dad would have been proud.
Lovely, lovely. And you know, I mean, it's a cheeky question. I mean, who do you say your dad would be most proud of out of the 4 sisters?
I think he would have he would have definitely rated the medics more. I'm sorry. But you know how it is in that culture, they think doctors are gods.
And sort of out of you and your sister cardiologist, who would have he kind of said, yeah?
That's the one, probably cardiologist.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, yeah, I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but you know, there's always a favorite there somewhere. And I guess I was too delusional, and you know, I always thought that I was my dad's favorite, but then
yeah, we always like to think we're the most favorite.
Yeah.
I always like to think I'm the daddy's girl, but anyway.
Yeah, we get a bit delusional, I think, when it comes to, I mean, I was I'm the second oldest, so, and I'm the oldest son, so that has a bit of leeway.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you're a boy, you're a boy in the family, and you're the oldest boy, right? Or are you the only boy?
No, I mean, I've got another 3 brothers, so
okay, but you're the oldest.
I mean, I'm not the richest, so he would have liked, you know, my younger brother, who's the richest.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fine. You know, he works hard and makes lots of money. And
yeah, what did he do? What did you?
He's a pharmacist. He's a pharmacist.
Yes, you're saying yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He knows how to make money.
Yeah. I was hearing that pharmacists is getting more difficult to make it profitable. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's NHS, definitely, but he's a private pharmacist, so
okay, so it's a different
yeah. So it's a different ball game, and you know, he's got other things going on. Yeah, I don't want to give him a big shout out. You know, he doesn't need it. So
well, a big shout out to your brother.
Yeah, I'm a bit jealous of him. I must say, I'm a bit jealous of it.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah, of course.
Nothing's stopping you from making money either.
No, it's not that. He's younger, he's prettier, you know, he's more charismatic, you know, that kind of stuff. He knows how to get his, you know, he just gets things done. Yeah. So,
amazing.
You know,
wow.
Yeah. No more shout out to him. Everyone knows him. Everyone knows him. Yeah. He's always, you know, because he was, I'm sandwiched between 2 sisters. And then we had no children for about 8 years. And then my brother came out, and you know, he got nice VIP treatment, and we were a bit like, you know, because we're all like bunched together, you know, they had 3 kids within sort of 5 years.
Yeah.
So we were like, you know, whatever. And then this guy popped out and was like, what's this? VIP treatment and this and that, and then we had to serve him, and yeah, so he got
so he was definitely the prince of the family.
Yeah, and you know, his pharmacy is called Prince Pharmacy, so
gosh, yeah, that's so fitting. He was treated like a prince.
Yeah, he's still a prince. No, he's done well. I'm not going to knock it. So so do you have any kind of sister rivalry and that kind of stuff? Does it still exist?
Yeah, it still exists, I'm afraid, because the medics got treated better than the non-medics. So we definitely have that divide. But yeah, we do have inside the medics that there is that divide. So we do try to bring that to light and make sure that they get their due attention.
You're being very diplomatic, I must say.
Well, I'm from a family of 4 sisters who are within, every our gaps are 2 years apart. So I've worn hand-me-downs all my life. So yeah, so we know how to share and be diplomatic.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, my sisters are quite close and much more close than me and sort of my sisters. Yeah, so there must be, like a special bond and chemistry and so on. We don't have that much of I don't have that much of a bond in chemistry with my brothers. So I guess it's a male thing,
Yeah. I think male, they want to be the alpha male, don't they? So it's like territorial.
Yeah, for sure. So and how did you cope when your father suddenly passed away? Was that the resilience coming out again?
Yeah, my goodness, my mom was the rock of the family. So I think we've become quite a matriarchal society after that, because she kind of held everything together. She was a single mom with 4 kids, and she did amazingly well and raised us and made sure we were all trained to the highest level. And yeah, she set us up, and she sacrificed a lot. And yeah, it's great. Yeah, great to have her support even now. Yeah, I don't think I would have made it this far without her.
And did you come from Bangladesh, or were you living here at the time? Did you emigrate to here?
Yeah, because Dad used to work for UN, we used to travel a lot as a family. And then when I was 7, Dad decided we'll make London our base, and he would travel and we'd stay in London. So we were in London since then. So London's my home more than Bangladesh. But yeah, we were quite fortunate to travel as a family and have those early memories of traveling together.
And what was it like transitioning here? What, did you find it difficult?
Yeah, it was. We learned so much, and we met so many different characters when we were first settling in this country. And as with all mixed bags, there were some negatives and some positives, and a lot of people, on the whole, you meet a lot of naysayers and negative scaremongers, but there have been some great positive supporters, and that's why we integrated so well in the society, because of them. It's we did see some racism in the late 80s, early 90s, but it's more hidden and more subtle. And what I found was the difference was when I transitioned from a state school to a private school. And that's where I found the most stark difference, because I met different people and different okay, sorry. Shall we stop it for a minute? I just got
yeah, no worries.
Yeah, just stop 1 minute. Yeah, so I met different kinds of people in the 2 different settings. So in the state and the private. And private is where I saw a bit more discrimination compared to the state. State, I felt a bit more accepted, if that makes sense. Yeah. And that's,
do you think because the competition was greater, did you sort of feel that was the reason why they were more unaccepting of your background?
Yeah, I think it's multifactorial. So in the private sector, there was a different mix. So there were more Caucasian in that mix, and they were of a more middle class background, and they were not necessarily intimate or close with people of different races. And all of those factors, I think, come into play. It's a bit of the unknown or alien to them. So people don't like changes. So it felt like a change. So when I joined that private school, there were already existing groups, and it was difficult to penetrate those existing groups who have been probably together since nursery and share this similar family backgrounds and family values. So that's where I saw more discrimination than in the state sector, and there was a quite stark difference between the two, as an inner city London school. So I went to London schools, and that's where I saw the most in terms of discrimination.
And how did you identify yourself at the time when you went to these schools and preparing yourself to get into medical school?
Yeah, so I got so many setbacks. People would lump together, even peers as well as teachers. They would lump together things like being a nurse would be similar to being a doctor. Everyone wants to be a doctor, but not your child is not good enough to be a doctor, that kind of thing. There was a lot of naysayers and a lot of negativity around applying for medicine and supporting that process. But I think it's more accepting now. There's a lot of Asians and people of color in medicine. But when I was certainly applying, there was a lot of negativity around the issue. And
did that fuel you? Did that make you even more sort of ardent?
That made me more alive and challenged. I'm like, yeah, I'll show you. So yeah, I think we like a bit of a challenge, and like to take that challenge on to break glass ceilings when there shouldn't be any.
And you got into UCL, which is arguably one of the best London medical schools.
Yeah, we like to think so, but Imperial probably would say they're the best.
Yeah, I mean, before it was sort of totally different, wasn't it? But I mean, was that by intention? Like, did you really want to get into the best, medical school in London, or was it by accident? Yes. Or
so when I was choosing the medical school, the list of medical schools, I wanted to actually go to King's, because that's where a couple of my friends were going to. And when they got their offers from King's and I didn't, I got UCL. I was a little bit sad, but I knew that UCL ranked higher than KCL. So that kind of softened the blow a bit. I think on thinking back, I did put Cambridge down, but thinking back, I don't think I would have fitted in Cambridge environment at that time. So being close to my family in London was a good thing for me at that time. I wasn't quite ready to be living away from family in a different town and completely start in Cambridge or Oxford. So I'm kind of glad I didn't get the Cambridge place, but UCL worked out for me. So it's good.
Yeah. And did you feel that the situation there was different from private school in terms of not being as accepted, and the glass ceiling not being so low, sort of thing?
Yeah, no, I love my time in university. I thought it was great. I met so many different peoples from different walks of life, and UCL was great. It was not just medical people, it was non-medics, and we had an amazing time integrating. The first year I was just Royal Free. I was part of the Royal Free crowd, and then we merged in the second year with UCL, and I met lots more people. We did a lot more things. We had lots of activities and extracurricular opportunities because we merged with a bigger medical school. But yeah, so I got to experience both a small medical school in the first year with Royal Free, and then for the rest of the 5 years with UCL, which is much bigger, and you know, gave me lots of opportunities and things to pursue. So I was glad that I did it that way.
And did you realize you were going to do ophthalmology, or how, you know, how did it happen, or were you
I think ophthalmology,
just studying?
I think ophthalmology is the best kept secret in medicine. I only had 3 days of ophthalmology in medical school. I had no idea what being an ophthalmologist entails, or you know, how to go about it and how to do the application. So I didn't really find ophthalmology until my foundation years. So in my second foundation year, I did a taster week in Royal Free, and I met great characters like Claire Davy and Jonathan Jagger, and I fell in love with ophthalmology then. But before that, I had no idea. I had no idea that ophthalmology would be a great specialty for me, or a great specialty to pursue, because we didn't have any exposure. 3 days is nothing of lectures and a few clinics and, you know, one cataract list or something. So that's when I really found ophthalmology, which is a little bit late because foundation year 2 taster week, and you should have already applied and, you know, worked on projects and got somewhere, poster and publication. So I did it the long way. So what I did was I did a couple of years in Australia, because there was that MTAS debacle the year before us. So everyone was jumping ship going to Australia. So a lot of our friends went to Australia. So I went to Australia with them, did ophthalmology there just to see if it's the right kind of career pathway for me. I did ENT, head and neck surgery, neurosurgery. So I was interested in head and neck. So I explored all the subspecialty within head and neck in Australia. And one I could have done in an NHS, but I thought it's a great way to use your medical passport, and I'll be with my friends and be in a, you know, great country, and would have sun and sea. So yeah, I did it that way. So I explored everything, and I thought ophthalmology is the one for me. And then I came back to UK, did masters in ophthalmology, and then did my specialty training.
Right. And what stopped you from staying in Australia, New Zealand? Sort of
I
more
think
long
my
term?
family, because I was almost a day away from family, and nobody wanted to migrate with me to Australia. I would have happily stayed there if at least one of my sibling or my mum or someone came over. I think I needed that, because I didn't want to be missing out on a family event because I was in Australia. I already missed my father's death because we were in different countries, and I didn't want to do that with mum or my other siblings. So I think that's why I came back. But
Wow.
I do think life would have been probably much more balanced in Australia, because I recently had a 10-year reunion with my Australian medic friends, and they're all doing amazingly well. Everyone has swimming pools and huge houses, and you know, their lifestyle is much better than ours as a medic.
I mean, it's totally different for sure. And I mean, I've never been out there actually. I've never been anywhere near that area.
Yeah, you should.
Just been to, I guess so. Yeah, it should be somewhere along the line on the plan. So you came back, and then
to get to know yourself. Everyone should travel, and they will become less racist if they travel.
Less racist, right? Okay. Well, yeah. I mean,
bias. You know, your unconscious bias. You start checking in on your unconscious bias if you travel, because you're exposed to different things, and you start questioning your beliefs and thoughts and traditions.
I mean, it's quite nice here being in London, you know, when you go, I mean, me personally, when you go to the mosque or to your local Islamic center, it tends to be really multicultural, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of, you know, students from different countries around the world. So you're pretty okay. Obviously, we all have, you know, biases, you know, towards, you know, certain sects and certain ethnicities and so on.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you're right. You know, it's always the unconscious biases which we don't see, and you know, until someone points it out.
yeah.
But you know, I guess I was biased towards Caucasians a lot more than non-Caucasians, so that was my unconscious bias, you know. Um,
Yeah, it's
and
a
it
hot
was a
topic
bit,
now, isn't it? The unconscious bias, the whole topic of unconscious bias is a hot topic. I'm glad we're talking about it more now.
yeah, I think having the dialogue is really important. I mean, as long as we're not sort of pointing fingers and telling people that they must change and, you know, so on. But I
Yeah,
think having the dialogue first and say that, you know, there are these psychological mechanisms within us that
yeah,
actually does prejudice us in terms of dealing with other people. I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, you know, because
yeah.
it's human nature, and there's nothing wrong with discussing human nature because, you know, we're all part and parcel of it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Like unconscious bias, especially to do with female surgeon, is really interesting topic and kind of close to my heart because I have been on the receiving end of bias because I'm a female surgeon, and it's good to make the whole society aware of that and the male counterparts, so they can
Tell us about that.
nurture and
What
coach.
happened?
So I think the most I've felt in terms of unconscious bias is after I've become pregnant and had my child, and I just realized how ill-equipped NHS is to protect and kind of nurture those returning mothers. I remember even among nurses who are female, they were not that supportive. You know, you think instinctively someone who is older than you, who's female, who's gone through the process would be more supportive of someone who's recently had a child and then is balancing their training and their childcare and all of those things. But yeah, so then you see a lot of the unconscious bias come out in terms of what their personal experience was when they were going through it and how they coped with it. And they, you know, some of the older generation has this attitude like, you know, I went through it and I'm fine, you can push through it. And that's not that's not the best way to tackle these things. You don't say just because I did firefighting and I didn't help anyone else along the way that it's okay to carry on doing that. And that's what I want to raise awareness about. So I work with Women in Vision UK, and we are all about raising the profile of women and kind of nurturing them through those vulnerable moments of when they become pregnant, when they have the baby, when they come back having the baby, and still make sure they're on that pathway to becoming the highly trained surgeon that you as a society have put so much investment towards. You know, most of our female medics fall out after they have children, and that shouldn't be the case. They can be just as not, they're not going to be able to do just as much as the male colleagues, but they will be doing things from a different aspects, from a different angle, but they can bring to the table as much as a male colleague. Doesn't matter if they have children or family commitments or priorities. And we lose out on half of the resources because we don't nurture them. And it's such a shame because we could offer a lot more than we have been into society because of those unconscious biases and sometimes conscious biases towards women.
and are the perceptions changing, or are they still entrenched and not budging?
I think there's been a lot of strides towards changing that ethos, and there's been great initiatives that's taken those things up on the platform of national and international conferences, and people are becoming more aware of how to deal with trainees coming back from childcare, and they're much more rigid things in place to protect them, which is great. So the training program directors are doing a lot for the trainees in terms of ophthalmology that I know of, and in terms of surgery as a whole, things have changed. So it's okay to be feminine surgeon. You don't have to be a boyish male surgeon and to be a successful surgeon, and I think that's a good thing. That's huge steps towards the right direction rather than the wrong.
And when you mean feminine surgeon, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I was talking to an orthopedic surgeon, and so I've met orthopedic surgeons who are both female orthopedic surgeons who are one of the lads, and also the ones who are not one of the lads, and they're just as effective as consultant of orthopedics, and similar. We're really fortunate in ophthalmology because we have lots of female ophthalmologists and role models, and we're doing it well as subspecialty and representing the female ophthalmologist. But yeah, I was just comparing the two different subspecialty, orthopedics and ophthalmology. And it's much more acceptable for female surgeons to be female and surgeons rather than female surgeons who are one of the lads.
Yeah, I mean, most of my senior consultants were female when I was training. So as you said, ophthalmology is pretty normal to have female surgeons. But I mean, I'm interested by that feminine. I mean, is it just sort of a matter of not being part of the boys' club, or is there sort of a different way of doing surgery, or yeah?
I think it's the whole brand. So female branding is something I'm really interested in, and I've done a few workshops on that. And it's okay to have the softer touch and be more empathetic and do it the way a woman would do rather than a man would do. So your attitude towards your patient would be different if you're a male or a female. Your attitude towards their responses would be different. And I think it's okay, and it's whatever works for that female. If they want to be a completely feminine surgeon, that's okay. If they want to be one of the lads, that's okay. It's whatever works for them. And for me, part of my identity would be feminine. So I want to be that feminine and also want to be the best surgeon. And you can have both. That's what I'm trying to say, that you don't have to sacrifice one side to be better at the other side. You can do both. You don't have to slice your identity in half to become a good surgeon.
Yeah. I mean, I quite like the soft skills and the empathic skills and so on, and I took that further with psychotherapeutic training, and it's being in touch with the feminine side, which I've always had. I'm a bit of a softie, really, but obviously the aggression is there, and there's a lot of testosterone that sort of gets buzzing around as well at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've had surgery by female surgeons, and the touch is different. The kind of, you feel that sort of motherly love and
the more nurturing.
Yeah, and it's great to have that combination when you're about to undergo some trauma by appointment sort of thing.
Exactly. And as humans, we're made of feminine and masculine energy. So even as a female, I do realize there'll be that aggressive side as well as the softer side. You guys probably would have a more testosterone aggressive part of it than the softer one. But it's just being in touch with both sides and using the right part for the right task. So if you're going to be a leader with a bunch of people who responds better with the masculine side, then you bring out that side. And then if the feminine side is called for, that's what you use. And that's it's just, again, learning to harness what energy you have and learning to appreciate yourself and learning to know yourself a bit better. I think it's kind of continuous journey, isn't it? And there's no right or wrong approach, but the better you know yourself, the better you can harness your energy to do better, get greater good for mankind. And that's what I think most of us doctors just want to help people, and that's why we came into this job. And the better
I mean, that's pretty much the default. I think that's the default. But life happens to us, and we start ticking different boxes, and we start looking at different things, and it can veer us away from that default situation.
I remember sitting in the lecture hall as a medical student, probably first year medical student, and we had a lecture from a registrar. And I remember how cynical he sounded. And I thought, when I become a registrar, I'll never want to be so cynical. And I'm quite conscious, and I keep telling myself, cynicism doesn't bode very well with me. It's not part of my identity. I'm an optimist, and I never want to be that cynicist that I had. I didn't take anything from his lecture.
Yeah, well, I mean, I must be truthful. I think I've been more cynical than hopeful in my career, but I think over the last 3 or 4 years, I've become much more hopeful. So yeah, I'm a recovering cynic.
I know. I think training as a doctor and working for such an oppressive organization as NHS, which is very rigid and structured, can make you go that way. And most doctors do start becoming cynical because they lose all their autonomy and they're so oppressed in the system. And it doesn't have to be that way, because you lose a lot of your resources and your skills that way, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it's going to get worse. I hope people in the NHS are not listening to this. But yeah, I don't see it getting any better. I mean, obviously, I think Labour will be coming in, and maybe they might change the course of the ship, but I very much doubt it. And
I think it's got too many holes. This ship has too many holes to be recovered by Labour coming in, I reckon.
Wrong direction, and it's sinking. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, it's a great feat that lasted 75 years, and it does great work, especially in the oncology and emergency sector. But everywhere else, there's so many holes. We can't. Seriously, I felt like I was not giving the best to my patients because I couldn't offer them everything that there are out there to benefit them, because NHS works on nice guidelines which are based on prices. They're nothing to do with what's best for the patient. They're based on what's the most cheapest and most effective treatment, and that's not always the best for patient. And so there are too many holes in the other subspecialties, I'm afraid, for this ship to be afloat and going in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been surprised about this whole NICE thing. Let's leave it at that, because I still work in the NHS, and we're still heavily regulated, and
I have nothing against regulation. It's just patients should know what's best for them regardless of the price. That would be my stance. Medicine is going to be, especially ophthalmology, because it's so tech driven, it's going to be expensive. And, you don't want to withhold information just because it's more expensive. That doesn't make any sense to me as a medic. As ethically, it doesn't sit very well.
Can you still deliver good quality ophthalmology at a cheap price? Can that still be done?
I don't think so. I mean, for some things it's fine, but not for everything that we do. You can't, because the tech is always evolving. It's always high range. The high end. It has to be high end because technology costs money to develop and to bring to the market.
And is there a big difference between the high technology and the normal technology in terms of
you're trying to get at
care?
I think you're trying to get at the branding, isn't it? So is there a price for branding or the generic stuff? So it's a little bit different from comparing branded handbags to the branded equipment you've got. So depends on what functions they deliver. So the more you pay, the more function it will deliver in terms of your tech. So there are obviously going to be competition between the markets, market providers, and the most expensive is never going to be the best solution. It depends on where the profit margin they're going to set and what they're going to offer. So if you're going to ask me, when I offer a set of treatment to patients, I look at the function that equipment delivers and whether I can access the best function for that patient. So it has to be quite tailored. So it's not so easy to answer that question because it's not quite like Chanel bag compared to a Marks and Spencer bag.
Yeah, so having all the options in front of you and being open, honest about it, and then finding not just best bang for buck kind of thing, but also good quality at the same time. So there's a lot of boxes to tick there.
Yeah, there are lots of boxes to tick, and industry's doing really well actually, because they have different prices for different markets. So they'll have different prices for the Western market compared to the Eastern market, and that's how it should be, because Eastern market, for example, places like Bangladesh and China, China's probably not the same market anymore as it used to be, but Bangladesh and Africa, they won't be able to afford the same tech at the same price as the Western lot. So there should be different prices for different countries depending on where the economic status is in that country.
And you still do charity work. Well, what's the purpose, or what's the reason behind that?
Yeah, so the charity work, as I was saying, is a family tradition, and it's entrenched in our ethos as a family. And after my father died suddenly in his late 50s, we set up a charity which is registered in this country, in UK, in his memory. And what we do is we help the local doctors put together medical camps and eye camps to reach more people who can't afford to go to the doctors or can't travel to the capital. In those countries, most of the medical facilities are centered around the capital where the money is. So people, doctors there don't have access to go to the rural areas and offer it to rural people, and that's what we want to help. We help the rural communities and work with the local doctors to do that. So, for example, my cardiologist sister, she does the medical camps, helps with the local doctors to do the medical camps, and once a year I go to do the eye camps. So that's been really rewarding and fulfilling for us, and also seeing the training of the local doctors improve through our work and collaboration and mentoring and networking. That's been quite rewarding, and I want to take that further, so foster fellowships for them to come over here so I can train them here. So that's something that I'm working towards that I could do. So that's been really rewarding. So that's a great way of reaching more people. And the other way we we felt was important is to enhance and bring more opportunities to girls in those communities. So we would do sponsorship and educational funding so they could take their education more than the compulsory education age, so they could go to higher schools and college and university. So those kind of schemes we do. We also do income generating schemes. So if people have good ideas to do a small business project, so some people have a project on fish farming, we will sponsor those things, or some housewife will come and say, I can, pitch a business about doing textiles and embroidery. So we'd help them with setting that business up and giving them access to sewing machine and things like that. So we do small low income generating projects there as well. So that's been really useful. And also collaborating with other charities. So Royal Free and Claire Davey had Vision 2020 links with Uganda. So we collaborated with them. I went out there and we taught the local team how to use tech and equipment there. So that was really useful and fulfilling. So doing that kind of charity work's been really useful for me. And that was my way of giving back to people who can't afford it. And also doing things like giving free lectures and educational training. That's been quite rewarding too. A lot of people do a lot of those hard work, and it's been very rewarding. In terms of my charity work, it's not just in Bangladesh and Africa and Uganda, it's also here in UK. So I do all my charity work for Royal College. It's voluntary work, they don't pay me. So I do examining for them, I do Inspire work, we do platforms for educational curriculums, and also wet labs. That's another way to transfer surgical skills. So I've been creating and running wet labs since 2019 for Royal College, and it's been very, very rewarding seeing, I'm helping people even through COVID, through the wet labs. That was useful. I've given lots of people great ideas of how to do wet labs, and there's when I was training, there's hardly any wet labs for DMEC. We had to go to Europe to do them, and I was the first one to do it in UK. And then now, ever since then, there's a wet lab, DMEC wet lab in Moorfields, DMEC wet lab in Western and Hull and everywhere else. So it's been great that not only I've created my own, I've inspired other people to create their own, and there's more access, which is great. So it's been quite rewarding doing all of that work.
Great. I mean, we'd love to have you in Iraq and create wet labs there.
Yeah, that would be great. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really good. It's been absolutely great listening to you. Very inspirational, and I'm sure there's a lot more ceilings to break ahead of you, because I think the work never ends.
Yes, definitely.
I'd like to end on this point. What would be your 3 top tips to Tina that was about to start private school many years ago? Given you've experienced what you've experienced over these years, what would your 3 top tips be to her?
Yeah, so definitely there will be always naysayers. Don't listen to them. And number 2 is just keep your vision in mind and keep going. And number 3 would be you can do great in the world and keep going. So that'll be my top 3, I think.
Wonderful, great. What's the best way of people getting hold of you? How can people reach out to you?
Just type in Tina Khanam. You should find me on my on social or on the website, and there's phone numbers and WhatsApp. There's so many different ways of getting hold of anyone these days. We're very reachable. So I'm right there. So just reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tina.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Haida. Thanks for inviting me.